A client recently asked us how they could use two-factor authentication to deliver sensitive content online. This is a great question, and there's a lot of talk about two-factor authentication these days. We put together this video to give a business overview of what to consider if you're thinking of using two-factor authentication in your business's web applications. First, what is two-factor authentication? As you've probably already heard, good security is a combination of something you know and something you have. When it comes to web applications, the something you know part is usually your username and password. In two-factor authentication, the something you have part can be a text message, a key fob with changing numbers, a smartphone app, or a phone call to a known phone number either manually or using voice biometrics. When planning two-factor authentication, your very first consideration should not be about the technology or even about what's most secure. Your first and most important consideration needs to be your customer and their experience. There is no point in implementing a form of two-factor authentication that your customers can't or won't use. That's a waste of time and money and will frustrate your customers. So let's say you're in the medical space and you primarily deal with older customers. If your customers don't have cell phones or don't regularly use cell phones, or they're on cell phone plans that charge for text messages or data, then picking a form of two-factor authentication that uses text messages or smartphone apps might not be the best idea. The other thing to consider from a customer's perspective is when you will prompt them for the second form of authentication. Will you be like PayPal, who forces you to go and read a text message every time you log in? Or will you be more like Google, who's smart enough to only prompt you for your second form of authentication when something risky or unusual happens? We strongly prefer the Google model as it minimizes the hassle to your customer. And of course, it's up to you to decide what high-risk activities merit that second form of authentication. Now that we've talked about the customer perspective, let's discuss the security of two-factor authentication. First, you need to understand that no form of two-factor authentication is 100% secure. Criminals are working hard every day to come up with new ways to bypass new forms of authentication, whether it's Android devices, iPhones, or text messages. Even after putting two-factor authentication on your web app, you can't just assume that you've somehow solved all your security problems. Further to that point, two-factor authentication is just one of many layers of defense you need to have to run safe and secure web applications online. You still need to guard yourself against common risks like weak passwords, injection and cross-site scripting attacks, misconfigured systems, and more. Now let's talk about two-factor authentication vendors. Google is certainly making waves in the two-factor authentication space with their free open-source smartphone app. You may already use it if you're a Google user and if you have an iPhone or an Android device or even a BlackBerry device. This may be worth a look if your customer base uses smartphones and you can't beat the price of free. However, a word of caution, Google does have a tendency to turn off products if they decide that they don't fit in their corporate vision. So that free price tag may come with a price of needing to do extra development work if Google ever decides to turn this off. Microsoft also entered the two-factor authentication space with their purchase of PhoneFactor. While this is a paid service, they claim to support smartphones, text messages, and voice biometrics. This may be a good choice if you need to offer your customers multiple authentication methods. Also, there are a number of pure-play vendors like Duo Security, LiveEnsure, TextPower, and SecurePush. They all claim to have a different approach to authentication that is better or at least different from the big players like Google and Microsoft. It's definitely worth taking a look at them to see if their approach is a better fit for your customer base and to educate yourself on some of the finer points of two-factor authentication security. To pick a vendor that's right for you, start with a list of vendors that offer two-factor authentication methods that best match your customer needs. Next, obviously, consider price. However, remember that free services may come at the cost of extra development work down the line. Try to understand the company's long-term prospects and profitability, as you don't want to go with a vendor that may not be around next year. And once you have a short list of vendors, do quick pilots with each of them to understand how easily they can be integrated into your web applications. If you'd like to learn more about two-factor authentication, we've prepared a free checklist that you can use in evaluating which two-factor authentication system is right for your business. Just click on the link below, submit your email address, and we'll send the checklist on its way. And if you'd like help with your own two-factor authentication projects or any aspects of security, fraud, or HIPAA and PCI, please visit our website or call 888-646-1616. Thanks for watching, and we hope you found this helpful.